Okay, let's look at section 2.4. It talks about implications. Right? Implication is just a fancy word for if-then statement, or it is sometimes called conditionals. Right? So if P, then Q. So the notation-wise, we'll just say P implies. So this is kind of using a fat right arrow. Q. So P implies Q. Right? If P then Q can be expressed in a bunch of different ways. You can say Q if P, or P implies Q, or P only if Q, or you can say P is sufficient for Q, or Q is necessary for P. Right? So these are all means the same thing. It means P implies Q. Right? So let's look at its truth table. Right? So look at the four possibilities. Right? P implies Q. So true implies true is a true implication. Right? True implies false is the false implication. Right? The false implies true. These are kind of tricky. If the if part is false, then it doesn't really matter what the conclusion is. It's always true. Because if something happens, then you have a conclusion, but that didn't happen. So, but it cannot be false, right? So false implies false is actually also true, right? So whenever you have if part false, implication is always true. All right. So here's a good example. All right. So look at this statement. All right. If -1 is equal to 1, which is obviously a false statement, right? All right. And look at the conclusion. All right. So this if part is also called hypothesis. All right. And then part is called also called the conclusion. Right. Now look at the conclusion. 0 equals 2. It's a false statement. All right. So therefore, implication-wise, it is actually a true implication. Right. Actually, this is a logical argument to this. Right. For the sake of argument, we assume that -1 is equal to +1. Then we can actually add 1 to both sides of the equation, so that the -1 plus 1 gives you 0, and the right hand side 1 plus 1 gives you 2. So there's a logical argument going from -1 equals 1 implying 0 equals 2. So it makes sense that this implication itself is true. All right, so it's a little tricky. All right, so that's the conditionals or implications. That's it. I hope that this was clear.